as soon as we get a match here for you, we will get going. Looks like we have PRG, and we do have a player card, so let's learn a little bit more about PRG before we get into the match
Um,
here.
well, one second. That might not be the match we watched.
Oh,
Something really weird just happened.
okay.
Was that okay? So game one, we are going to watch this game. Game one appears to have gone to PRG because their opponent was AFK, but there is a match still to be played.
Okay, so
So
PRG took game one due to a timeout. Okay.
yeah,
All right, well, let's take a look at PRG, part of Team Prismatic Conclave, 28 years old, likes anime and is that nightcore music? Nightcore music?
yeah.
PRG comes from the lyrics of a song, and PRG is retired. I like that. Retired's always good to be. And has 3 top 8 finishes in the HEX Clash. So PRG definitely a player to reckon with. Definitely a very good player. And we'll be facing
Uh,
off against Viulenza.
worth noting for anybody who's here who doesn't follow maybe the hex scene as much as like you're here for the first time. The clash finishes are a limited format, so they're entirely different than what you're seeing today. So PRG generally finishing high in not today's format. Not to discredit their skill, but this is the standard constructed format, which is a little bit different.
All right, so I will turn it over to Nia and Penta, and here we go for game number 1.
All right, so we got some opening hands up on the screen here. Viulenza running Kagalichu, PRG running the Haraza deck that I think this is similar to the Lime Killer variant that we saw earlier today. Typical Kagalichu keepable hand down in the bottom, resources and cards that are too good to actually be printed, with a couple of Badgers up on the top. What are you thinking about this, Paul?
It's hard to say, really. I mean, there is only a couple of resources in PRG's hand, and doesn't have the same kind of fixing power that Kagalichi does. So maybe there's potential to get stuck there. There are 2-drops, though, plenty of 2-drops. So maybe if the Badger comes down on 4 and we see some shenanigans there, the damage could go through. But on the bottom here, we see some very strong stuff. Exarch is a good blocker for these early plays. So maybe the board will get gummed up by a 1-3 and a 4-4.
Absolutely. Again, just I make the joke about it, but basically every card in the Blood Wild decks these days are a tremendous value. They've got a deck building restriction to include the Underworld Crusader, but that deck building restriction doesn't stop them from putting in cards that you would run in constructed decks anyway. Exarch of the Egg is generally one of the one-ofs. We can see it coming down here. Not a bad card in the slightest. Wouldn't be upset running 4 of them in a lot of the decks that I play. Certainly going to stonewall this Lasgar's Bloodletter, which comes down. We can see, I don't know if you can see the numbers shifting over in PRG's hand there. The Blamsmiths are socketed with Gladiator.
You see that resource? It is a Fate Shard, though, so it's not going to be putting any vampires down this turn, but it is potentially getting a resource on top for next turn to get that Badger online and on the board, which is going to push these Bloodsworns to a position where they are able to trade with the Crusader, which is probably where PRG wants to be.
Yeah, definitely not a bad thing at all. I can hear the horn for round 4 kicking off in the background, so if you are watching the stream and playing in the tournament at the same time, your round 4 match is likely to start in about a minute, 2 minutes. Don't time out. Speaking of, I know I already mentioned it, but the bottom player here, Viulenza, did lose game 1 to a timeout. We didn't show that because when I loaded up to it, I was very confused as to why the game exploded. Then I saw that the match length was exactly 5 minutes.
Slow shard, and that means no Badger this turn.
Yeah, really brutal. But they do get to put down the Vampire Princess, which, aside from the fact that the Underworld Crusader is socketed with that Skyguard to begin with, is a fairly decent troop. We see a second Bride pickup here. We're also going to probably see a Coglici charge power here soon. Viulenza could hold on to that. They don't really need anything in particular right now. They've got plays for days. They are going to activate that. They find a hero fall, which is outstandingly good for them. They can get rid of all of those princesses now. Going to see the Crusader crash in here, not afraid of trading it off. Bride of the Damned is the follow-up. We'll probably see the lily pad played for a blood shard, and we do, lowering the health and defense of the Vampire Princess just to reduce the amount of damage that it could possibly do.
Okay, so we see a sting come off the top there, which is definitely relevant because we have, the Badger here to push that charge power up, and we have the sting to push everything else up as well. But Viulenza on 4 blood and with a hero fall in hand and another bride means that this, a blood off the top means this board state just goes to the other person. Like, as good as this is.
Yeah, we're really a turn behind. Finding that slow shard wasn't what PRG needed and leaves them a little bit behind the 8 ball here because they are a turn behind on putting down the banner. They're a turn behind on putting down the Sting of the Scorponok here. Any number of those things potentially giving them a little bit of an edge here in this game. No Paws of Yazakan for Viulenza in hand means that it's going to be difficult for them to interact with the banners or the constants that are put down. And even as a game 2 match, Viulenza probably didn't see what their opponent was playing to make proper reserves choices, so they're probably playing with their main 60 anyway.
Yeah, so this is a swing of 1 into this board. The highest attack troop, notably, and also notably the hero fall is now offline thanks to the resources being used up there. But PRG is down to 10, so a full swing here probably isn't on the cards, even though every damage would get through, other than that princess. It would be 15, which isn't enough. And then the backswing is pretty brutal. So, yeah, that slow shard really just pushed everything back here. You are 100% correct when you said that, because this would be a different game right now if that had been a quick resource that gave him the resource this time.
Even if the -1/-1 from the bride had gone on to a different troop. Now, it is important to note that those Lasgars can sacrifice troops off to gain a series of rage so that they won't potentially be blocked out by both the Runir and the Abomination here, which was we do see an onboard trick here from Viulenza. PRG kind of misses that. I don't think it was worth sacrificing troops off for rage to begin with. That would have been a very dangerous call, but it's likely that we see the double block here, knocking off those bloodletters. And I think that's going to seal this game away. No, Viulenza is just going to take it. The backswing is strong enough that they didn't need to worry, and there were no resources to really stress out about. Still.
Yeah, the hero fall is the kicker here. Like, it takes out the life drain, and that means everything's A-okay.
There's actually the Paw of Yazakan, which could have helped anyway. So even if we had seen this be a real game, things would have been changed here. We're going to see the hero fall targeting maybe the Badger. I'm not entirely sure. The way I have it set up, I can't hover over these cards in real time. But we are going to see the full swing. It was the Vampire Princess. I mean, either way, it was fine. Getting rid of the life drain, I suppose, gets another couple of points of damage through here, but it was lethal in every direction. And we are just going to pop back on over. I'm going to cover up the screen, and we are going to go to game 3 in the matchup. So after losing, air quotes, the first game in the match to simply being AFK, Viulenza ties it up, and the players are going to go to game 3.
Sometimes you don't need the first game.
Well, it's certainly like, so there's an advantage to a digital format in that you can sit at home and play the game, and you don't have to get up and walk around for an entire day. You don't have to travel to a big event. There's no there's a lot of advantages to the digital format. One of the disadvantages, and I mean this is a little bit not really a disadvantage, but it's worth mentioning, is that the round times do fire when everybody is ready, which I would generally consider to be a positive. But I mean, if you get up and you're like, oh, there's 3 matches left, I'm going to make some eggs, and you come back 6 minutes later, but there's, it's possible that your game fired up in that time, and there's no, you can have speakers set up to blow the horns, but you don't get like a text message notification when the round starts or anything like that. You know what I mean? And they don't start on the hour. We do see, I believe it's up on screen now, the game 3 opening hands here. Haraza with another slow-looking hand, a couple of double blood threshold cards tied in with 5 resources. And on the play here, maybe I would throw that back. But up on Kagalichu's side of the board, aside from an Exarch of the Egg, it's roughly the same thing. A bunch of really slow cards, a Ron Rancor to pair with the charge power. 2 really slow hands.
Yeah, I think that I keep Kagalichu's hand, though, but I ditch Haraza's hand because, Kagalichu has a hand that does what Kagalichu wants to do, and Haraza's hand here has a hand that doesn't do what Haraza wants to do.
Absolutely. Both players do choose to keep, and as a result, we are going to get to watch this game unfold from that position. This Vampire Princess, very potentially one of the biggest threats possible. We see an early Runir Hierophant picked up for Viulenza, which is going to turn this from a mediocre hand into a much, much better hand. Every time the players take a little time to think, I'm worried that the replay feature has mysteriously paused itself. And I go to try to fix it. I'm like, oh no, what's happening?
Speaking of cards that turn a hand into a much better hand, we see Riftwort Badger come into the hand there, and also Pora Vyazakan. So pretty good draws. Oh, there's a spider straight away. Good stuff. Good stuff.
A little bit brutal there. Always rough to see one of the 2 spiders hit the top of the deck. Observation bias would have me say that happens literally every time that my opponent plays an Exarch of the Egg. That is, in fact, not actually true. It's okay. It's not really as big of a threat as it looks like in this matchup. The Princess is going to easily get some of that health back. The Haraza starts with 23 health, which is more than enough to take a couple of Spiderling beats.
I'm not even in this game, and I'm angry that Valencia just drew that Crusader when this beautiful thing is about to happen.
Yeah, and we see the Crusader still socketed up with the Skyguard and the Steadfast, which is absolutely amazing in this matchup to stop the Princess from getting in. So likely PRG is going to have to hero fall that away now and give his opponent 2 extra cards. No, he goes for the Badger. Puts down the Badger, going to activate the Haraza banner. And we're going to see the swing with the Badger, which I think that's the correct line here. So the threat for PRG here is the double Crusader now. Another top deck Crusader is fairly... Oh, we're going to see the block. Huh. And there was going to be a top deck Crusader, so...
Still a pretty good spot for PRG here. Like, this Princess should get through. Provided the hero fall goes down here. But there are a couple of other things that could be played. Nefarious Corruptor is one of them. But I mean, you've got to want that Princess to hit, right?
You know what's actually going to bite them a little bit in the backside here is the... Well, not bite them in the backside, sorry. That's going to be advantageous to them is the Gravebane Vial, which can help prevent the Ron Rancors in hand from triggering. So we are actually going to see... The reason Gravebane Vial is kicking around and pretty happy in a lot of reserves right now is its ability to stop effects like Rotten Rancor, Winter Moon Charge Power, and a few others from activating. The Vampire Princess gets to swing in. We're going to see that find... By the looks of it, it exposed the...
It was the secret, I think.
No, it's the card. It's the card that disappeared because it was exposed. But that's irrelevant here, I suppose. The downside to the Gravebane Vial, of course, is that it's on the board, so Viulenza will know that they can't activate a Rotten Rancor here safely. Runic Hierophant comes down.
It's not really a downside, but
No. I mean, it is an onboard trick. You know what you're playing around.
Massacre is interesting. Massacre is something I probably wouldn't bring in against a Kagalichi deck, but it's not too bad here. The Strangle in the opposing hand, however, is fantastic.
Alternate Dart Massacre, too. There has only been one weekend to acquire those. It's really nice to see it in hand. Looks like it's got a couple. It's been extended as well. Sometimes you just got to show up with all your bling ready, you know. Strangle gonna catch the princess.
Yeah, so Massacre is coming down here. It ultimately leaves the board with one Blight Blossom on it. The Abomination is going to be a 0/0, so that's going to knock off straight away. And that's actually a pretty good Corruptor target, that little Blight Blossom. And with Viulenza on 14, that might actually go the distance.
I'm a big fan of those Corruptors. Let's see. That Corruptor is still socketed with the Abomination by the looks of it. I have a little bit of information from the future here. I have seen people socket it with the double damage gem after reserves. So I'm not sure if it's in this matchup. It's supposed to be swapped around, but I did see some chat about that from Line Killer, who, as mentioned, has been running this deck almost like exclusively on the ladder.
So Prgjjar comes in. The scrounge happens as the card is played, so Gravebane Vial can't step in to stop that. We see another Corruptor, which is just amazing, I just want to say. Because, if one Corruptor could have gone the distance, then two of them have twice the chance.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the kind of turn where you look at the double Corruptor, you use the Gravebane Vial potentially as removal. Now, we do see the Eternal Seeker getting ready to do stuff. Now, let me just double check. Those triggers were split between the two targets. It could have potentially been a downside to put both on one, as the Seeker could have voided it in response, which would have been a big deal.
All right, yeah, that's true. So we've got the Seeker coming in, 5 damage to the face of PRG, and 4 damage to the face of Viulenza, and then another 5 next turn. Currently, the Relic isn't doing a whole lot here, especially with that Prowler in hand.
Yeah, Prowler's kind of a big game. Riftwar Badger, not a bad top deck, not a great top deck either, as mentioned, the Gemborn Prowler is just ready. PRG can play the Vial, draw a card, it's a shard. One more resource can activate the Charge Power yet again, and the Charge Power might be what PRG needs to get the last couple ticks of damage through here. Viulenza almost having lethal this turn. Not quite. Could void the Badger and swing in.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is going to be close because a resource next turn makes, Blackfire Relic a thing, and that potentially puts enough damage in that the Corruptor effects will finish off here. Unfortunately, the Vial has been popped prior to. I'm not really sure how much difference that made prior to the Kagalichi, but there's still one left, so Rancor's still off the table. I think the only real thing to do here is pop the Prowler.
Prowler going to activate from hand, get rid of that Badger.
So Hero Fall is offline. Hero Fall cannot be played. We see Viulenza here deciding if they want to swing with everything. Because there are two ways this goes, right? One of the ways is you worry about that 7th charge.
Well, you have to. I think you don't have lethal this turn. You leave behind at least the Blight Blossom. It's not a resource anyway, which leaves. I'm pretty sure this leaves PRG dead on board. But perhaps they can play 2 troops out here, and still be at least let's see, block goes to 7, blocks goes to so they can technically survive here. We will see 4 more damage go through to Viulenza here from the cards in hand. Minsagi coins cashed in, and they find it finds the Emperor's Lackey. Huge card here. No matter.
The game's over because of Hero Fall, right?
Right. The Hero Fall was the way to go here. Yeah, Hero Fall just gets rid of the Prince, and then it's a swing for victory. So playing to outs. Worth noting, though, that even without the Hero Fall, 2 sack targets, 2 sack troops just came into hand there for Viulenza, who would be able to get rid of the 2 troops with that damage trigger on them. So they were at least a little bit okay there.
Yeah, it's a shame that Prince, if the banner was down, would have ended the game if it had speed.
Absolutely.
But PRG a game up in the first round, in the first game of that match. Unfortunately, just got taken down.
I wonder if that would be the most frustrating thing ever.
Maybe.
Watch your opponent go 5 minutes without playing. They lose game 1. You're like, all right, at least I get a free round. And then they come back for game 2 and 3 and win. I don't know if
it's
that's
happened to me a lot of times where the opponent has lost the first game to time and then come back to beat me in the bum. Not like a huge amount of times, but enough that it's too many.
Yeah.